Garland Nixon here, hanging out with the one and only Matt Weinglass from The Homeless Left, and we got a bunch of stuff that we got to get on top of. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here, hanging out with Matt Weinglass. And my gosh, well, we missed, as you probably all know, those who saw me doing my show literally from my pickup truck last week. I was out of town for a week, so Matt and I couldn't really get together, but we are back. And oh my gosh, so much to talk about. Let's start off with women in space, empowered, strong, exceptionally rich women who are in space. For some reason, all women are now empowered. Women that can't pay their bills, that don't have health care, don't have child care, laid off, struggling, living in a friggin' tent somewhere. They're empowered because a bunch of super rich women, allegedly, there are people who have a lot of questions about it, ostensibly, let's just say perhaps, maybe it happened, we don't really know, got in a friggin' capsule and went just far enough to say they were in space for a few seconds and came back. Yeah, and you know what? I'll say this. For those who say, I don't think they went, I think it was all a fraud, here's the truth. Doesn't matter. Even if it was, does it really matter if it was a fraud? And really, to talk about whether it was a fraud almost gives it this pretense that it matters to any damn body else in the world what a bunch of rich women did.
Yeah, no, look, let's call it what it is. It's a publicity stunt. And like you're saying, Garland, it's we can get into the details and we can talk about what actually happened in this very, very short period of time, 8 minutes to 11-minute period of time. Well, we can get into that. And we should talk about that in a second. But let's start with what you mentioned up front is this women in power fiasco, which definitely backfired. I mean, we're seeing right now is some damage control being done by Katy Perry herself. She's getting blasted as she should be on her own by her own fans on her social media. She's saying publicly right now she regrets certain parts of this. She's specifying, I regret doing the Instagram video from inside the spacecraft. Okay, well that's a starting point. I mean, that was kind of ridiculous, but that's not really the parts that we're upset about. The stuff that she won't mention, which is how she presented after when she got out of the thing. And the first thing she's talking about. This is the biggest problem of all, is her telling the world that this is something that she couldn't recommend more. This is an actual thing she said, Garland. I couldn't recommend this experience more. Who are you talking to? All of the women that you think you've elevated during this experience, the women that are barely holding on to their jobs and their rent, they can barely afford their rent in an economy that is tanking right now. This is your message to them, that you recommend they do this. And that's the disconnect. So this is, and it's unfortunate because again, she's in damage control mode. The whole team is in damage control mode. NASA's in damage control mode, but they're not connecting the dots to what damage has been done with this, what we're calling it's a publicity stunt. And again, we can get into what actually happened during those 8 to 11 minutes up in space, as they call it. But no, this is definitely a backfire. And I don't see that they know how to correct this because they don't fully understand what the problem actually is.
100%. Here's what somebody just brought up in the chat, and I don't know why. For some reason, this does make you kind of think about this. When the Muppets were here a long time ago, remember that the Muppets were way ahead of them, way back in. They did pigs in space, and then we've gone from that to a similar kind of thing. And it is. Here's the other thing too. It really aligns with the whole Hollywoke kind of thing for this reason. Everything is symbolic. And I know people think I beat a dead horse on this, right? But when I turn on the latest chewing gum advertisement and there's 2 Black females who are empowered, and then a gay Black guy, then a trans person and an Indian person, right? And they're like, yes, everybody in there should feel empowered. And I'm like, that symbolic bullcrap don't pay the rent for nobody. Well, you know what I mean? Hey, you know what? Look at the average wages for a Black female and whether it's gone up or down for the last 20 years, and everybody else, the white males and the white females, over the last 20 years, as the rich people, theirs have gone like right up through the roof, and everybody else has been stagnant or gone down. So putting these women in space and saying, hey, I couldn't recommend this more for everybody. This is great. This is wonderful. It's that whole symbolic thing that says you get nothing. And when you get to watch some rich people or people who are more fortunate than you, or just because they're on TV, look, these women in these advertisements might be AI. Or since they're screwing over the actors and actresses, they're getting, let me add this, the women or minorities or whoever that they put in these advertisements, they're doing everything they can to screw them to death and screw their unions over. So even the symbolism of the people in the advertisements is screwed up. But that's it. We'll put women in space. We'll put a diverse group of empowered women on an advertisement and in a movie, and all these people out here who are catching hell are supposed to feel better. That's the whole game, isn't it, Matt?
Oh, completely. And it's a one big major distraction, like you said, is that it's painting that picture of diversity and inclusion. And that person looks like me, so I feel empowered. It's all theater. It's all fake. And this is the stuff they've been doing for years and years. And they're seemingly getting better at it, but yet we're getting smarter at it. So they have to figure out ways to trick us. But I think obviously your audience, our audience, we understand these methods. We all have that moment where we go, wait a minute, those people aren't us. These are multimillionaires. This is a class warfare that they're distracting us from the real problem. As we know, you're talking about a Jeff Bezos funded operation. This is the remember the billionaires, the good billionaires and the bad billionaires.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about
I
that.
think it's hard for the lefties right now to understand what if they're supposed to hate Jeff Bezos or not. They weren't given explicit instructions on is he a good or a bad one. I think he's in the middle, but he's not Elon Musk, so you can't hate him. He's trying to help the people. Amazon's helping. While we're all locked down, right? We're all locked down during COVID until further notice, and this is a good guy that's gonna make us all feel good with these little stints that aren't doing anything for people. Like you said, these are the people watching are the ones struggling. The people watching are completely detached from this in reality, but yet they want us to feel like we're part of something big that's happening. And I'm going to say one more thing she said in that interview, which is also very important. She said it is like we are what we're doing is we're surrendering to the unknown. It's a surrender to the unknown. And when I heard her say that, Garland, I was thinking, man, this is language that they use over and over when we're talking about we're all in this together. We don't have to necessarily understand what's happening. Just listen to instructions. Trust us. Trust the science. This is a trust the science moment that they're trying to do on top of this diversity, inclusion, and elevating women. It's pretty horrific when you step back and look at it for what it really is.
As soon as I hear members of the ruling elite use the word surrender, I know that they're talking about us, and I know who we're supposed to be surrendering to, them. Whatever, surrender to the unknown. Well, gee, they're kind of murky rich people. We really don't know what the hell's going on with them. They're the unknown. So I guess we're just supposed to say, all right, rich people, do what you got to do. And, when I see some of these Hollywood people like a Tom Hanks or whatever going along with this stuff, or, God forbids, some of the other, like really beautiful actresses going along with this. And I look at them and I think to myself, you're going along with this whole thing. Tom Hanks, if you started now, you couldn't get a job. You're a white guy. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I got to be honest. Tom Hanks is whatever you think of him, he's a really damn good actor. I've seen him do work that is absolutely incredible. Sorry, pal. They'd find some overweight Black woman who was trans or bi, and she'd be on the island with Bob or whatever his little thing that he was living with.
Oh, yeah.
There, right? Or what's the one, the beautiful Black woman? She's kind of small. She was Storm. in
Oh yeah, Halle Berry.
one of the most gorgeous creatures that this universe has ever created. She could get a job now. Are you kidding me? They wouldn't touch her. They'd have some pudgy. I mean, not that there's anything wrong to be with overweight. And there's been some great overweight actors and actresses. Don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-weight. I have members of my family who are overweight, whatever. Right? I'm not. This is not about weight. It is about this. They got to make a point. So now it's got to be a bi, trans, gay, or the person's overweight, so they can say there's different kinds of beauties, or they're missing an arm. They had what was it? They had that one Echo. You remember that? Echo was a female superhero who was Native American. She was deaf, and one of her legs was like cut off or something, and she had half a leg. So she was, and that was like, hey, did we miss anything? She's there. I don't know. She could have been bi. They could threw that in there or something, right? But it's this whole concept now that they got to find the least attractive, person. Almost like if they use a white guy as an example, there's lots of white guys running around, so you can't use them because there's too many of them. Or if they use a beautiful women, they're somehow insulting women because then they're saying something to all women like, hey, women, it's not a bad thing to be beautiful. And now they're like, yeah, it is a bad thing to be beautiful. We can only concentrate on women that aren't beautiful. Everybody's beautiful in a way. People see someone that I might not think is beautiful and say that's perfect for me, and vice versa. You know what I mean? But it's this whole concept they have that's pure madness in Hollywood now. There's no thoughts of entertainment. Forget that. Everything they do is for their own selves, so they can teach us all some moral and cultural lesson that we really don't want to learn.
Yeah, no, those days of Tom Hanks being the guy, the guy we all root for. And like you said, if he was just coming on the scene now, he wouldn't have a shot. There'd be no effing way he could get a job if he was starting right now. But the idea
Lizzo would get his job, would get his parts.
Yeah, no, Forrest Gump would be Lizzo. Yeah. You couldn't have
exactly
right. You couldn't have a bumbling white guy. You'd have to figure out something else. He'd have to have more than a learning disability that we have to be rooting for.
He'd be trans. Right? You'd have to be trans.
Yes, he has to have a sexual identity issue. He has to have. I can't get a job because I'm in a minority category. So yeah, Forrest Gump wouldn't work today. But the idea is that the reason that shift is happening is because there was an expiration on how long they could pretend that Tom Hanks was championing the people. There was an expiration date on the Tom Cruise, and so he's part of the last of that generation. Now you have to switch this up, or the people are going to be sick and tired of it. They have to see. But again, because we understand this method of what they're doing, we're not falling for this either. So I do think that there's an expiration date on the entire system of how Hollywood functions. That expiration date is coming now because you and I are talking, because people have had enough of this. We're going through this charade every time a new film comes out, and like, oh, this is the story of the people, and no, you guys are now just checking boxes that you think you need to check to say, oh, well, we did it. Our scorecard, we get in. Come on, guys, we did it. We checked every box, but we know it's not authentic. We know it's all fake. These aren't real stories being told, and I think people are sick of it. And now that we're able to kind of tell our own stories, and we talk about the independent film model, and we talk about, wait a minute, we don't need a studio to greenlight a film. We can figure it out ourselves. We understand how to get, viral marketing, and we understand how to get people to see all the different platforms, all the different ways you can get your work, your content seen. So yeah, overall, I think their system is failing, and they're doing it in such a dishonest way. They can't just put their hands up and go, you know what, our time is run out. You guys take it from here. No, they have to fight. They have to go out kicking and screaming. But Garland, that anytime an empire of any sort, whether it's the U.S. or it's Hollywood of any sort, when you're going out, you don't go out calmly. You go out kicking and screaming, and that's what they're doing right now.
Yeah, Lifetime movie had a week or so ago this movie that was so bad. It was like one of these The Bodyguard kind of movies where, a woman is a rich woman and she has a guy, but he's really kind of a dark force, but she has a bodyguard that's watching her. And as soon as I'm like, Okay, I know how this works out. And in the end, she's going to fall in love with the bodyguard. But oh well, let's see what the hell happens, right? It was unwatchable. It was so bad. You're not going to believe this. It's as you're a professional. It was like the old Chinese karate movies. They literally didn't get the voices and the audio and the video lined up. So the mouth would be moving and it wasn't in sync with the words. And it was almost, I was expecting someone at some point to go, "You killed my master. Now you must die." You know what I mean? I'm like, that's an old karate movie. We were okay with that. We knew they were speaking in Chinese. We just wanted to see all the karate fighting, right? We wanted to see the kicks and the punches. We're kind of, this is a movie. We want to hear what the people are saying. I couldn't believe that this could be put on the screen where but it was a diverse woman who was in charge, who was the star and blah, blah, blah. So somebody looked at that and said, the words don't necessarily line up with the mouth moving, but let's throw this out on the screen and see what this looks like. Unfriggin' believable that they can put this stuff out in this day and age.
Unwatchable sounds like it. I mean, it's again, this system is failing, and maybe they know it. Maybe maybe they know they're going down with the ship, and that's why you put out garbage like this, and they just go, whatever. Let's see who clicks on it. We're over it. They might just be in kind of zombie mode anyways at this point, because they know there's no sustainability right now with this model. But again, like I said, the good news is that there's other talented people. Right? There's actual creative, talented people that are figuring out how to do this on their own right now. And it's kind of fascinating to see that type of pushback. So yeah, everything's changing right now in Hollywood, and we're here right now experiencing it for ourselves. I'd say more than having a front row to it, we're actively participating in the pushback that needs to happen. It's kind of a populist movement against Hollywood right now, against Hollywoke, as we call it. So that's the good news.
This leads us right into something. I'm gonna segue into something. I found in life that people, that you've probably heard about this, like the word person actually means mask, going back to the Greek tragedies. You know what I mean? The mask that we put out is often the opposite of who we really are. The personality that we put out is often the opposite of who we really are. And people that act tough all the time is because they feel weak. You know what I mean? And people who really are tough tend to be more stoic and just chill out because they don't need to act like they're tough. That kind of stuff, right? Okay. And oftentimes we put out the opposite of what we are to protect ourselves, right? Okay. Here's where I'm going with that. So what we're getting in Hollywood, what we're getting in New York, what we're getting in the centers of entertainment, things of that nature, is we're moral. Look at this. We're standing up for minorities and females in this group. We're standing up for the little guy. We are just moral, good people out here to do good stuff, right? I think one of the things that's driving that is the genocide. You see, because if you're backing a brutal, vicious genocide, right? You can't just wander around the streets. Hey, how's it going? What are you up to? Back in a genocide. You have to put on a pretense that you're the good person.
Yeah.
And have you noticed that the more vicious and the longer and the more brutal this genocidal thing goes on, the more they go out of their way to pretend about how good and nice they are in the centers that are the most supportive of this genocide. And that, what do you think about that?
Oh yeah, no, that's the mask is a key part you're mentioning there, Garland. And Hollywood has to put on that mask because Hollywood's, I mean, let's just be real. They support the genocide. That's what they do here. It's the whoever's controlling. I can't say who's controlling Hollywood. I'm not allowed to say that. But let's just say that you got people like we talked about this previously, Garland. Gal Gadot getting honored on Hollywood Boulevard with her Walk of Fame star. After the most horrible performance we've ever seen in that Snow White film, but the fact that knowing that she voluntarily signed up for the IDF, knowing that she was in she was literally in Lebanon in 2006 murdering people on behest of Israel, on behest of the Western Empire. So like we know that, and she there's pictures of her there like showing off. I'm ready to murder people, and so these are people that are championed, and like you said, like How do we do that? How can they? And I know this is kind of it's a rhetorical question, but how do you sleep at night, right? How do you wake up in the morning and call yourself a creative, an artist, or somebody like in this world of Hollywood? And like you said, there's other industries that do the same or guilty of the same thing. You have to put a mask on, right? You have to say, as we are championing this thing, we are the good guy. These people are less than human. So our moral victory is that we are doing something for the greater good. And I think we go back to that language that we know very well, Garland, for the greater good. We're all in this together. Do what you have to do, but we have to save grandma. Well, you just killed, you just destroyed all these small businesses, all these families. Wait, you can't mention that. What do you want to kill grandma? It's like, no, we're saying that we care about people that are harmed by policies, by funding policies that are hurting more people than if we just took a step back and said, this is not okay. What are you? So they have this language ready to go to shut people up and punish people. And I mentioned Hollywood, like people go, okay, come on, Matt. Well, what do you mean Hollywood supports the genocide? Just because they don't necessarily talk about it, or they're so what? They're doing Walk of Fame celebrations. That doesn't necessarily mean they're for genocide. No, they're supporting it because anybody who speaks out against it in this arena gets punished. That's what happens. They make examples of you. They make an example of Susan Sarandon. She loses her CAA. That's what we call it, the CAIA or whatever. But that's the biggest talent rep in Hollywood. CAA, this Creative Artists Agencies, says, no, you're out. You're at a Palestinian protest. You're gone. Susan Sarandon, like a lifetime achievement. Susan Sarandon, you're gone. We can't have you speaking up for the people that we're murdering, for no other reason other than for this greater Israel thing. And we can talk about that and like what is actually going on. But this is the point you're making, and I'm 100% seeing it, Garland. The mask that must be worn is the only way you can as we say, sleep at night. Right? That's it.
Exactly. Let's talk about what's going on with Joe Rogan. And I think it's important what's happening with that lately, because what we're seeing, and I think it's important to understand, and that is this concept, and these are conservatives, right? So-called conservatives, who they claim to be independent thinkers, like during COVID. Right. A lot of these people would be like, well, this is ridiculous. You've got the government says that you can't talk about, COVID or challenge the policies. Well, I agreed with them on that. And I'm like, yeah, I agree with you guys on that, but that's my position. It's not a convenient position because of this issue. That's always been my position. Like I said, I can go back to when right here in the state of Maryland, when I used to be with the ACLU, and I went on TV all over Maryland and DC saying, look, the KKK has requested a permit to march in Annapolis. We as the ACLU are saying you have to give them the permit. I personally find their views as repulsive. However, the First Amendment says you have to protect unpopular speech, that you can't get more unpopular than the KKK, but people are free to have a counter protest as long as it stays. So we recommend, if somebody doesn't like it, have a counter protest, do whatever you want. But if you let them take theirs, one, they'll take the other, right? It's a position that says my position is based on constitutional protections for everyone, and not just okay. But now you got these people, when it came to COVID, when it came to Ukraine, even, and certain things. Oh yeah, sure, no way, you shouldn't shut down people. Now that it's their baby, which is Zionism, oh no, they have done a 180. My argument is they didn't do a 180. They were never. You are not for free speech if you're only for free speech, supposedly, when it's something that you believe in. Anyway, talk about, for people that don't know what happened. First, brief our people. I'm sure we have people who are like me, aren't up to date on what happened with Joe Rogan, but give them the whole story of what happened and how we got to where we are now.
Okay. Well, first of all, let's just say what Joe Rogan is doing. Like, we've had discussions about whether he has gone too far or far. I mean, I always think you can't go too far. The only thing we've ever accused Joe Rogan of is saying, hey, push back a little more here or there. But even still, he's acting in a way where he has the number one podcast in the world. He brings on as many people as he can to have discussions. Let's just start with that. So the idea is you have a platform where free speech reigns. This is what we all should be applauding all the time. And we know what he did during COVID, which was brilliant, that he was able to bring on all the doctors and scientists and people that were not allowed to have a platform otherwise, and talk about medicine, talk about science, and have alternate discussions that were not being had anywhere else. So if you start with that, you would understand that when we talk about Israel and we talk about Palestine, you know that Joe Rogan is going to do his best. And again, maybe he makes a mistake here and there, but he's doing his best to have as in-depth conversations as possible. So the audience that's watching, that's listening, can be informed with as much as they can, so they can make their own decision. Okay, so starting there, here's what happened. So we had in the last week or so, you had these two different situations. First, you had Douglas Murray. Now this is a total neocon dude. He comes on the show to have a debate, and this is what you want. You want debate. So you have comic Dave Smith on there with Douglas Murray, and they're having this debate about Israel. And Douglas Murray shows his true colors, that he's on there to do propaganda for Israel, and he goes to these talking points that we've heard over and over since October 7th. We know these talking points. Have you ever been to Israel? Have you ever been? Well, oh, you haven't? Oh my God, wow. You have the gall to talk about what's going on somewhere that you've never been. And what's really great is that Joe Rogan is able to push back on this, and he continued to push back on this even after the episode. And these are the things we need to be saying. We need to be saying, wait a minute. So when you go to Israel, Douglas Murray, who's paying for you to go? Are you being toured around by the IDF? Yeah. Are you being showed an example of a narrative that they are giving you? So you're not actually getting your own opinion from the trip you're going on. And that's what you want. You want Joe Rogan and Dave Smith to go on a tour. Or do you want them not to go on a tour with the IDF, who's going to protect them and make sure they get back okay? Or you want them to go on their own to Gaza, like, I don't know, 200 other journalists who are murdered now and aren't going to make it back to tell the story. So what are you exactly saying? We say, have you been to Palestine? Have you been there? Have you been there? So those are your options, is to not go and not be allowed to talk about it, or you can go and be a pawn of the IDF and come back and do the narrative that they want you to do, or you can go on your own and might be killed and not come back at all. So those are your options. And we know, as like you said before, Garland, this is the opposite of free speech. You're saying you have an obligation to keep your mouth shut if you don't do those two things. So obviously Joe Rogan called that out, and people are pushing back. So this is good that we're seeing people speak up for Joe Rogan right now. Now, the second thing, I'm going to go on to the second guy that came on, Jordan Peterson. Now, this is a guy who we know got a lot of stuff right about COVID. And I think I'm with you, Garland, on this, where you're like, well, a guy that's for free speech when it's convenient for the topic you're talking about, that's great. But we can see you completely do this 180 when you're coming on to do damage control for Israel. That's what his purpose was. And he goes on Joe Rogan shortly after Douglas Murray and starts lecturing him about his responsibility to censor his own discussions, his own conversations with people, because he doesn't know what he's talking about. So he should cut them off on their mic if they go too far with something he doesn't know about. And Joe Rogan's looking back at Jordan Peterson and going, isn't this exactly what you were against during COVID? Isn't this exactly what they were trying to do, is cut people's mics when they're trying to have discussions? What are you talking about? Self-censorship? Yeah. That's where we're at right now. We have all these people on the right. They're doing damage control for the right because they know not all of them are for it. So you have Candace Owens, you have Tucker Carlson, and Jordan Peterson is using language like psychopath. You must be a psychopath if you have any disagreement with Israel's policy right now. And he won't stop. He continues to do this garbage. But thankfully, Joe Rogan is there with his massive audience to push back at this complete nonsense. And it's total propaganda. And it's a shame that anybody would be on the side of these people that are complete they're complete hypocrites at this point.
Yeah, and here's the thing about it. I'm glad for that whole thing. I'm happy for it. I'm happy that Jordan Peterson said that. What's great, it gets back to this. It's a good thing that Joe Rogan does that. I don't want to hide Jordan Peterson's voice. I want to be able to point at it because, we both know there are people like that, and we've talked to people like that. You know what I mean? And so, like I said, that's why I left the ACLU. I was on the board of directors. I worked for the ACLU. I'm on the board of directors for the state of Maryland and the national board of directors, and fought all of these big fights. And then when I saw it become just captured totally by big money and captured by the Democratic Party, et cetera, the neoliberal forces, the amount of money that it was getting, and then when they finally wrote that op-ed that said that jab mandates, because people were like, well, wait a minute, you're the ACLU and the government's saying everybody has to do this. And there are a lot of people who have issues. Shouldn't the ACLU be saying we're going to file a lawsuit or we're going to push back against it? And they literally, their national legal director wrote an op-ed in the New York Times that said, not only does it not violate your rights, it actually protects your rights. And they put in there, they said that the jab was safe and effective. Well, now, of course, YouTube, everybody knows how safe and effective it is. I'm just saying, I mean, for God's sake, I mean, I got a bag of boosters around here. I don't know. I usually carry a bag with me, but I'm going to make sure I get mine, as soon as this thing's over. I got one before we started, and I'm going to get mine afterwards because we know they're extremely safe and effective. But here's my point. My point is this. I said to them, I wrote a resignation. I said, I went to Pfizer's website to their frequently asked questions. Is it safe? And Pfizer said, we are still reviewing data and getting data, I'm paraphrasing, to determine the long-term safety of it. And I said, we're a legal organization. There's no one in here that is trained in the law or law degree. Everybody here, but few exceptions, have a background in law in some way, shape, or form. And you can't write in an op-ed that it's safe if the maker of the drug is writing, we're still gathering data to determine the long-term safety and efficacy. And I'm like, I'm out of there. I'm through. I'm finished. And I was like, we went from a organization that people would get mad and drop out and say, you're defending Nazis, you're defending KKK people, and we'd say, no, we're defending the Constitution, right? And I was right. I'm like, that's what I'm trying to accomplish right there, dude. We're trying to stand up against stuff that everybody gets pissed off at us about. Now we're doing our job. And now we're saying we're going beyond Pfizer. Pfizer's like, we're not sure. We're like, get out of here, Pfizer. You don't know anything. Man, I'm telling you, this stuff is fantastic. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Everybody should get some. So, I mean, but isn't that the same thing? It's that lack of consistency. Well, I'll put it like this. They are consistent. The Jordan Petersons of the world of the ACLUs. If I am in favor of this, I'm all for it. If I oppose it, I'm against it. I'm not ever going to say I oppose this, but everybody has a right to look into that or to speak out against it.
Yeah, no, the consistency is the thing that's the most important part. And we know how to do that because we're, and even the tagline for our show, The Homeless Left, is a non-tribal approach to news. And we take that non-tribal approach to everything. You have to. And when you can detach yourself from the tribe, which Jordan Peterson clearly is part of his Israel tribe, he has to protect it at all costs. When you can separate yourself, then it's not hard to see what side is the side of the people. The side of the people is always against censorship. The side of the people is always against war. The side of the people is always for bodily autonomy. The side of the people is always for these things, and not to mention the right to protest. The side of the people is always that. So you and I, Garland, we know how to champion the people that are getting, taking due process away when they're protesting. We don't care what they're protesting for. We don't care if they're out at January 6th. We don't care at Black Lives Matter. We don't care if it's end the COVID mandates. We don't care if it's pro-Palestine, end the apartheid, end the genocide. we know that the people are the side to be on. And when you arrest people and call them domestic terrorists and start shipping them to El Salvador, we know you're on the wrong side. So it saddens me that there's so many people that call themselves, they're in the medical freedom community and they've been on the right side for certain things, right? The COVID stuff. We have to, end the mandate, stand up against this totalitarian COVID regime. Okay, well, you got that right. And now do you think, and I'm not talking about Jordan Peterson, specifically him. I'm talking about the people at home that, are watching and engaging, and they're going, I think he might be right. I don't know. People may be on the fence right now because they don't, and I'm not trying to give them excuses. I'm just saying that maybe they weren't paying attention, Israel, Palestine, and they have their trusted people, their Brett Weinsteins. It's so important. Brett Weinstein, he got everything right on COVID. So his take on Israel should be right? No, it's wrong. It's dead wrong. But why can't you see it? It saddens me, Garland, that there's so many that don't understand, that can't connect the dots and say, shouldn't the people in the street for Palestine be treated the same way the people were in the street for the COVID mandate, the same way the people, the trucker convoy in Canada? Like, we should be on the side of them, not draining their bank account, right? Not taking their GoFundMe's away, not shipping them to El Salvador, not get like what? How do you get this wrong? This is the part that saddens me the most, Garland.
I was at an anti-war protest one time, and there was a bunch of these fascist kind of guys holding up these, one of them actually had a sign that said, "Give war a chance." Right. And they had pictures, America and F-16s and all that stuff. And there was a couple dozen of them, and they were like counter protesting and what have you. And people were yelling at them. And I'm like, hey, respect those guys. I disagree with them. They're a bunch of crazy fascists and they're pro-war, but we're here and we're saying, in fact, it's hard to know which war we were protesting. It was one they were just about to start. Might have been, the Iraq War of 2003 or something. It was a long time ago, right? My point being, the whole time I was like, I judge the people here by how they view those guys. You disagree with everything they're saying. You find them as human beings, disagreeable. You're like, man, these people are terrible. They're terrible for the world. That's now where I have to judge you. How do you respect the rights of those who you disagree with? I've always said this because people are like, and you've seen this. I've seen these memes on Facebook. How you treat me determines how I act towards you, right? And I'm like, no. Hitler, the most evil person in the world. Netanyahu could have a dog. He come home and pet the dog. Netanyahu could have like his friend. He could be nice. Anybody can be nice to those who are nice to us. It takes no special emotional strength to love and hug and be nice to people and support people who agree with you on every damn thing or who just kisses your ass. Where I judge somebody is, how do you act towards those who you disagree with, who maybe don't like you, who are against everything? How do you, you know what I mean? To me, that's the real judgment of people. And my thing is, that guy's an asshole, but he's got a right to say that. Get out of his way. The police should defend him. Nobody should hurt him or touch him. Get out of the way. Don't try to disrupt them. Let them stand there and say, yay, war. We're going to be quiet. You go ahead. You got a right to do that. We'll respect you. We ask for the same thing. That's how I judge, people, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, no, this is a great, I love this theory, Garland, because people need to be re-educated with this. They do say that. They say, oh, that cop can't be bad. The cop that beat the crap out of someone and shot him in the back. Well, he's got a family. He has a son. He treats him with love. It's like, everybody has a son or a daughter or a wife, or that's great, good. Or everybody is somebody's uncle, right? That gives them a Christmas present, right? That's great. But how are you treating other people? That's everything. I like that a lot. And so how you treat your enemy, how do you treat somebody you don't like? That'll show you what type of character this person has. Absolutely. And so yeah, that's when the true test happens. I totally agree with it. We need to teach that a little more. I think, to people to relearn how we judge people by their character. Their character comes out when the push comes to shove, how do you treat? You don't like January 6th protesters. You don't like what they represented at the time. Great. Are you cheering on them getting locked up and not getting to see a judge? Is that something that you think is fair? Oh, okay. You don't. Oh, you think that's a good thing? Well, then you don't have any principle. You don't have any moral compass. I don't care that you hugged your kid or you gave him a Christmas present. You just championed. You just called people a domestic terrorist and said lock them away, throw away the key, don't see a judge. F you. That shows who you really are. Yeah.
Well, you know, the first thing about the whole January 6th thing, before I knew much about it, people were like, those people should go to jail. And I'm like, I don't agree. And they're like, well, why don't you think they should go to jail? I said, I don't know that much about the laws or what they violated or what have you just yet. I said, but here's my position. I think we got too many people in jail. Right. So it didn't have to do that much with what they did. It had to be more with, we put people in jail for writing bad checks. I was a cop. I can tell you go to jail and there's people in jail for crap. I remember one guy had a couple of pounds of weed and he got, this was before it was, and the guy like lost his business and they put him in jail and gave him 6 years or something like that. And I'm like, for a couple of pounds of friggin' weed, people smoke. Come on, get out of here, right? What is this guy? What are we putting people in jail for? Even before weed was illegal, what are we putting people in jail for this? So my position was, okay, some guy came out and beat somebody to death. Fair enough. I can understand that person went in jail. He robbed the liquor store. You got me. Okay. Yeah, I can't say that guy should go in jail. But somebody wrote a bad check or, you know what I mean? Some crap like that they put people in jail for. Too many people are in jail. And like most of these people, they literally charged them with a highfalutin version of trespassing on federal property and stuck them in jail. So my position, even notwithstanding before I found out that it was a whole Fed operation, but so I was ahead of the game. But notwithstanding all of that, had I been a diehard Democrat that, they're trying to do this, that, and that, if I looked at what they were charged with, they tried to interpret it as all kinds of things. They're trying to, but when you looked at what they were charging with, it was basically trespassing on federal property. I would have had to look at it and say, based on my belief that too many people are in jail, this is a low-level offense. If you're going to find somebody, something like that, if you're going to give them a couple weekends in jail, if you're going to give them a collar and make them stay in the house for 2 or 3 months or so, okay, which I don't even believe in because they should be able to go to work and earn a living for their families. But even then, the consistency of saying these so-called liberals who are like, there's too many people in jail, all these things, we got to let more people out of jail. What about the January 6th? Oh, they all got to go to jail. No. Again, the consistency of, if you think too many people are in jail, even if but especially if it's somebody that you ideologically disagree with, I'll say this. You know what I didn't like about the January 6th protesters? They were standing around with a bunch of signs that were pro-Israel, that hated China, that hated Cuba or Venezuela. They were like actually dead aligned with Joe Biden's foreign policy. So I hated that. They were all that element was there. I disagreed with that element, but I didn't think that they should be put in jail for what they did. If they're found guilty, give them a fine and send them on about their way.
I was similar with you. I didn't know about that. There were 200 feds that infiltrated the thing. And I didn't have to know that to know something was wrong. I didn't have to know that to know at the time that when the Washington Post printed the story that more than half, I think it was 75% of the people that showed up to January 6th were either in bankruptcy or had filed it at one point or time or had a certain amount of credit card debt. So there was a commentary about getting to the heart of the matter. Why did they even show up in the first place? Because they were desperate. Then they had to retract the story. You can't talk about economic issues. That's not the story. The story is racism and ignorance and domestic terrorism. That's the story we're going with. So I knew at the time, again, not even knowing that now we know 200 feds had infiltrated that entire thing, operation, without even knowing that. We knew that was wrong when that was happening at the time. And so, like you said, you can't say, well, lock all those people up and then have a complaint later when it benefits you. Like the Tesla protests, you got actual vandalism happening. And I think this goes in what you were saying earlier, Garland, about there should be consequences for that. If you destroy property, there should be, at least a fine for that, or something for you did an act of vandalism, you should be fined. Well, Trump called those Tesla vandalisms, he called that violence, an extreme act of domestic terrorism violence. And so he took the approach of, well, you're going to call all of our protesters on January 6th domestic terrorists. We're going to do it right back to you. So he went the other direction, trying to be consistent, I suppose, by saying, hey, I guess they're all domestic terrorists then, if that's what we're going to go with. And it left this liberal class in a really bad spot, because they're saying, rightfully so, they're saying that's wrong. What do you're literally suggesting shipping people who burnt some Teslas down, you want to ship them to El Salvador. Yeah, that's what he said. And that's wrong. But you don't have a leg to stand on if you were for taking due process away from people who were protesting on January 6th. So you're kind of screwed. You kind of screwed yourself with that. And here we are in this space, being the consistent one, saying, no, it's all wrong. And Trump should have gone the other direction. He should have said, it's always wrong to take due process away from people. But he didn't. He doubled down on his, his messaging of, lock them all up. So there you are.
Somebody in the chat said, oh, no, they were flying American flags. Let me just say this. I'm not going to do what they did in Canada and say, we found a Nazi flag, therefore they're all Nazis. You know what I mean? We found a person in the crowd who said this, therefore the whole crowd is that. No, I'm saying there was an element there that I actually did absolutely disagree with on Israel and Zionism and all that kind of stuff. That is not saying the whole crowd is like that, because I do not do, the old one drop spoils the whole crowd. I'm just saying even the people in that crowd, especially the people in that crowd that I absolutely disagree with, would not single them out or anyone else in that crowd and say, well, because I don't like those people, there should be a different standard for what happens to them. Let me give you an example of what you were just talking about when you talked about Trump, how when one group does something and then it invites some kind of backlash, right? Yep. Okay, you and I and a lot of other people are like, look, right now, Trump's sending people that wants to send them to El Salvador and all this kind of crap. They're nabbing people. What next? If I protest, are they going to come get me? Blah, blah, blah. Look at this. Here's an article from 2011, back when the ACLU was worth a crap. President Obama signed the National Defense Authority Act into law. The statute contains a sweeping worldwide indefinite detention provision. So here's my point. All this stuff about Trump, which I agree, he shouldn't be able to do that. How'd that happen? It's people who refuse to look at the continuity from administration to administration and to say, look, Obama was in. I can blame him. Why does Trump have either the authority or the intuitive a mindset to believe that he can even get away with this? Why? Because of the war on terror under George W. Bush, because Obama doing all this kind of stuff. So all of these liberals who are pooping themselves over Trump, dude, they set the table and now Trump's eating the meal. Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, no, this is, I'll put another example on the table. Trump is doubling down on all these policies that were used that they came at him about. He's just using it against. This is what they were afraid of when he got in. They go, we can't let Trump get in because he's gonna get revenge. Well, what is he gonna get revenge on? Well, all the horrible things we're doing to him. So the judicial process, that's the other thing. So when Biden captured what we call the banana republic, right, where you go after your adversary and you use the judicial power you have in the office of the executive branch to take down your adversary, and you do it in a very corrupt, dishonest way, which we saw with all those felonies, which were not felonies. It was one misdemeanor. They extended to 30-something felonies, and they go, oh, we got him. And then this whole overriding of the Supreme Court, that Biden gave himself that power to override the Supreme Court when he wanted to, so he could get the thing done he wanted to. Well, guess what? That's how Trump's getting this to happen in El Salvador, and bypassing a Supreme Court ruling that was 9-0. They said you needed to get this guy back that was wrongfully sent to El Salvador, and so he doing the thing that was set up for him by the previous president. And again, we're back to this. You're in a major pickle right now if you're on the vote blue no matter whose side, and you were championing all these things and saying it's for the greater good. Biden can do whatever he needs to do to stop Trump. Well, now you're seeing the results of that. And that's the problem with playing tribal politics versus non-tribal politics, when we can call it out no matter what side is doing it. And that's the right place to be. And it's too bad that the space we're in, Garland, again, is a small space, because most people are either backing Trump's side or saying, oh no, look what Trump's doing. This is what we warned you about. He was gonna come back and get his revenge. Get your revenge. Think about what that even means. He's gonna get his revenge for what? What was done to him? How was the system used against him? And now he's doing it back. Well, here we are. This is the bed you made, Biden and Vote Blues. Now sleep in it.
Yeah, and if you listen, oftentimes they hate Trump, but they agree with most of the policies that he's doing, or as you said, they just don't agree with who he's doing it to, but they agree with what he's doing. Foreign policy, they got the same enemies as Trump for the most part. And what we're seeing now is some kind of a fraudulent, I'll put it like this, AOC and Bernie are marching around. We got to stand up against the oligarchs, right? And I'm like, yeah, come on, guys. And one thing I've noticed about them, you got them marching around, we got to stand up against the oligarchs. And what's going on? The same MSNBC that did everything they could to kneecap Bernie in 2016, they love him now. The ones that AOC, they love, oh, Bernie and AOC are doing such a good job of standing up to the oligarchs, right? Our bosses, the people who write our scripts, they're standing up to them. And so they're wandering around with we're standing up against the oligarchs, and this fake, false, what's the word, astroturfed movement of protests, where these people who are like former State Department people, former Obama advisors, former, you know what I mean, former intelligence assets in a nutshell, are now putting together protests for all over the place. And here's how I know those protests are rotten. They're all over the news. And they're literally bringing the people on MSNBC and CNN to talk. Yes, we organized protests against Trump. Tell us about your protest against Trump and Elon Musk. No, tell us about your protests against war and genocide. Oh, you can't, because there's not a hint. How do you supposedly argue that you've got a left-wing protest and the only thing you got is a picture of Trump and Elon Musk, and you can't find a single war anywhere on the face of this earth that you oppose?
We've been having this debate on our show about what is this incarnation, this reincarnation of Bernie. Is it Bernie 3.0 with AOC? What's going on here, and why? Like you said, this is a great question. Why does it look like the mainstream is embracing this so early right now, when we know that their role in Bernie 1.0 and Bernie 2.0, we know that the media's job was to be afraid of Bernie, right, and to be like, this could be really dangerous if he goes all the way. We got to stop this. So what is going on differently? We're looking at AOC right now and saying she's looking like an Obama 2.0. That's what it looks like is happening. And so, like you're saying, Garland, about there's no wars being protested at these so-called protests. This to me is looking like a new hope and change movement to change up the face of the war machine and bring in the new face, which this time will check even more boxes than Obama checked in 2008, 2009. And now we'll get the green light to go even further with the Greater Israel Project and anything else that the neocons have in store, as AOC is championed as the populist candidate, the hope and change candidate that will actually make it all the way. So you're actually not going to see a last minute switch out like Bernie did to us twice. Time to support Hillary. It's time to support Biden, my good friend Joe Biden. That might not actually happen this time. We might not have a AOC good friend, as we say, a good friend for her to give her support to. She might go all the way, and so that's why it is a very scary thing to see so many people falling for this now, because you were like, we're thinking, where were you in 2008? I guess a lot of the young people weren't old enough at the time to know what was going on then. Well, we can see it. We can see these massive people showing up here in LA. We had Bernie said himself, the most people ever showed up to a Bernie rally in the history of Bernie, and that was in LA a few weeks ago. 36,000 people were here, more than anybody during Bernie's first two runs. It's pretty remarkable to see this in 2025. We're still three years from the next election. So I think that there's definitely a psyop happening here, and it might go all the way to the finish line.
Yeah. So now, May 1st, which happens to be my birthday,
Oh, happy birthday!
they've got this group that's this, astroturfers. Let's look at it. I love to do this, right? So these astroturfers are going to do a 50-51. Now, if you look at this, it's so obvious. I mean, it's that this is, a psyop, but let's look at the good old 50-51, right? Let's start here. Let's look at their signs, right? What are their signs? What are they? Okay, you got the women's rights. You've got impeach Trump stuff. You've got freedom and equality. There's more right stuff. You've got Trump is an enemy. So all I have is hatred of Trump and human rights stuff. What's this say? Impeach the dictator. No one is illegal. So that's opposed to human rights. We need and demand a whole new way to live, a fundamentally whatever that. I don't even know what that means. We need and demand a whole new way to live. So that means nothing. We accept so all these things you see are just anti-Trump. Mm-hmm. Nothing about anything else. Nothing opposing the government overreach. Yeah. Oh, they're going to end executive overreach, but only because Trump is in. Now let's look at their values. Well, let's see what we got here. Look, commitment to inclusivity. Woo! Their first thing is we're committed to fostering an inclusive environment where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered to contribute. Look, they're embracing diversity and enriches our perspective. Equitable practices. Well, D-E, okay. Their commitment to nonviolence. You know what's interesting about their commitment to nonviolence? It doesn't leave the shores of the United States. Nonviolence of all of our interactions, fostering a culture of respect, interactions, a peaceful conflict resolution, dialogue, empathy, cooperation, and a safe environment, and actions and commitments, reject harm, build a community. Well, isn't that the part where the anti-war and anti-genocide piece is supposed to be?
Well, no, Garland, because as we know, we've been trained by AOC herself in the squad. We've been trained that nonviolence means not protesting war, because words are violence. Remember, words are violence. So when you say promoting nonviolence, they're saying we have to stop it with these college protests against American imperialism, Western imperialism, and the Greater Israel Project.
And we can do that by sending cops in to beat the hell out of them using violence, of course.
Which is the cops are defending themselves against their violent words. That's all that is.
There we go. Commitment to conflict resolution, right? Now, well, here's what's interesting. They use this term conflict resolution, but they don't apply it to conflict between states, right? Fostering peaceful conflict resolutions within. They're very specific. Look at this. Conflict resolution within states and organizations, very specifically, not between states. Within states, and they're even within. They're basically just say, "Hey, we're for conflict resolution, peaceful inside of the state, not outside of the state." Isn't it interesting they say that? By promoting diplomacy, mediation, inclusive decision making, we strive to address the roots. Our approach emphasizes respect to fairness and long-term solutions that strengthen relationships and lasting stability in the movement. In other words, it means nothing. They're saying nothing. Let's look at more. Partners. Who are their partners?
Here we go.
This is going to be fun. Political revolution, no voice unheard, Voices of Florida, Build the Resistance. I don't know who the hell those are.
They might have just found.
Yeah, they're all made up. You probably look at
a week ago.
You look at let's see. Same old crap. I'm looking at one now. Let's look at one of them. What the heck? Let's do it. Let's look at one of their partners. I think it's important to do that and to get people accustomed to doing this, that as soon as you see that website. So here's one of their partners. It's called No Voice on NVU, No Voice Unheard. And let's look at about them. It's aimed to empower all of those whom the current administration and its officers seek to silence amplify the voices of the marginalized, offering resources to help you protest legally and non-violently. So this is a very specific website and organization to support these protests. So their partners have this thing, that is, their partners are to do nothing but to support their own protest. Our No Voice arose from a shared goal to amplify voices in early 2025. So it just started.
Yeah, they just filed their paperwork.
They just started it.
Yep. There you go. That's why we haven't heard of it, Garland. So now it's good. We're getting a little education.
Know the
here.
founders. You're gonna love the founders. Know the founders. I have been witnessing the decline of our country for years, but I was determined to focus on living my life to the fullest and doing what I could to improve my own circumstances as a trans woman in the South.
Of course.
I was seeing my rights stripped away. I knew I had to take action. Right? There we go. There, and then partnered with, and you see the same old crap, build the resistance, blah, blah. There's a black woman, apparently, with a there's a black woman with a megaphone or something like that. So bottom line, every one of them. And when you look at it, I'm going to do this one last time, and we'll stop since we're almost at the end. I want you to see this is one of the another organization that they're partnering with. You'll see the same thing over and over. Watch this. The other organization that they're partnering with. Voices of Florida, right? Let's look at what they're saying. Men of quality don't fight inequality. Defending reproductive freedom and human rights. There we go. This is their whole website. About us. Let's look at their team. Their team is, there we go, empowered women. Corey Brakely, them. I'm not sure what they've been. Somebody with multicolor, right? Leadership war. There we go. This obviously, this person's got a mask on. In their picture,
you got to protect yourself from the photographer.
Yeah, there you go. Somebody with multicolored hair. So there we go. This is their group. Certainly.
Are we allowed to say somebody looks like a trans? I'm not allowed to say that the blonde woman looks like a trans. I can't say
which one doesn't. No, the question is, I don't know which doesn't look.
No, the one on the next one down. Next one down on the left. Next one down. Wait. Where did it go? It was up. It was up at the top. Sorry. There was a blonde. That one. Yeah, right there. The they them. The blonde.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say that's?
Oh, definitely.
That's a woman, right?
I think it's fairly obvious. There's a few of them there. Yeah. It's the same game. There's look at that. There, don't tread on us, and that's a black woman there. Seneca Bristol, she, her, they, them. Right.
This is who they're like. Pretend and have like a white straight dude in there just to pretend that it actually is diverse. Is that something that ever crossed their mind? Because I don't feel represented at all. And I thought I was a man of quality, as it says they're men of quality. I'm a man of quality. I don't feel represented at all. Well, I feel like I got shortchanged here.
Come on, you've got something that says "Don't tread on us." Voices of Florida. So here's the bottom line. What I'm saying is this. Here's what's obvious. It's like a CIA op. Everyone, I've noticed this when you go to these websites for like the 50-51 thing, and you see their partners. Every website that you go to is the exact same website. Every website that you go to is a Hollywood, the latest Snow White or Hollywood a superhero movie, a diverse group of women and people who may or may not be women who are standing up for the rights of the blah, 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 but they're in favor of genocide, right? So here we have this, I think we just demonstrated. And I like to do that because I like to tell people when you go to these websites, go to see who they're partners with, go to see what's going, click on them, and you'll see the same website over and over again because it's funded by the same people, because it is the same people. Most of these websites are, if you look at the way they're made by the same person. Unbelievable to look at that crap, isn't it?
this is important. I think we all need to do this. Take a look at these things, and like even on that front page, that home page, Garland, you're looking at the signs, and you're seeing what is the messaging. The messaging is stop Trump. The messaging is stop Elon, right? Oh, government overreach. It's not stop. By the way, it's not stopping Bill Gates or Fauci or people that also have government, never were elected to a position and apparently control our health and control everything. You know, this is specifically against Trump and Elon, and that's not an actual movement. People have to understand this is what we call controlled opposition, and the Bernie AOC thing, which I do believe is going to go all the way through the next 3 years. We have to be very careful, very mindful, understand that people are going to show up to these things because they are desperate, and we understand desperateness. That's why people show up to protests, quote unquote protests. But this is controlled opposition. That's what this is. And it's going to continue, and we need to be able to have these conversations with our fellow family, friends, coworkers. Have these conversations. Say, oh, I noticed you were at a Bernie rally. Did you have a good time? Yeah, it was incredible. Oh, we talked. Oh, well, what was the messaging? What's the plan? Are you taking on the war problem? Because we have a war problem. Like we're on the brink of World War III on massive levels, and there's nobody against that. So we need to send the message to people. Like ask them, how was your time at the Bernie rally? You feel good? Okay. So why do you think that the mainstream is supporting this? Why do you think that Nancy Pelosi is showing up to these things? Why do you think, do you think this is a real resistance movement? A real resistance movement is not going to be covered nicely by mainstream, if at all. A real resistance movement is from the outside. It's a real people's movement. It's not, we're going to take them on, Justice Democrats. I don't know if you saw this, Garland. We just saw this morning. Cenk Uygur is doing another rebellion movement, Justice Dems. Cenk Uygur, he's putting together a team. Ro Khan is part of it. Oh, we're gonna really stick it to him. Well, you're not gonna stick it to AIPAC. You don't have any plan to stick it to AIPAC. That's not happening at all. If you're talking about we're gonna change from the inside, you're not doing it. It's not happening. So the people need to get more curious. We need to be more skeptical. We need to call this out. Even though it feels good to have Obama out there. Obama of hope and change. We're done with that. We're not going to fall for this again. And if we really want to do something, we got to do it ourselves. And when the mainstream chooses to ignore it or call us terrorists or drain our bank accounts or send us to El Salvador, then you know you're on the right side and you're actually doing something. That's how you know the difference.
Let me show you one. We're going to look at lead, but on the way I got to show you one more thing. So 50-51, right? They've got partners, political we just saw No Voice Unheard, right? We saw the Voices of Florida with trans women and all that stuff, which they got a right to have. Okay, so they're their 4 partners for 50-51. They're behind this thing, right? You see your 4 partners? No Voice Unheard, Political Revolution. Okay, so I said, well, let me click on Political Revolution. It's obviously clearly a complete and total different operation. I mean, it's a partner, right? It couldn't have anything relative to, to them. Let's look at the Political Revolution. All right, Political Revolution. This is critical that we look at them. And look at that. We've got a person who's white, and then a female, and then a representative of a person that's brown, right? Well, I got an idea. Let's look at their partners. Whoa! 50-51, Voices of Florida, No Voice Unheard, Build a Resistance. Their partners are the exact same partners. All 4 of them. Somebody made 4 damn websites.
Yep.
They made all 4 of them partners. They put a diverse group of people and trans people up as their people. It's, you know what? Those people probably don't even exist. They may, but they may just be AI people. They may have just said, okay, give me a picture. AI, give me a picture of a trans person with blue hair, blah, 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 blah. Look at this. The exact same group of people.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I just started 5 new Twitter accounts, Garland, and they all have 4 followers each immediately. How did that happen? Like immediately. That must mean it's popular. Like immediately they all got the same followers.
Yeah, a group of volunteers that grew out of the Bernie Sanders campaign. Amplify the message of other like-minded. We engage in community. Look, they were tired. It was the end of the day. Their About Us is like really, really short. And they're going with, okay, we're like Bernie or something. So forget that. And they got events. Oh, they're standing up. What do you know? They do have shut drone warfare. So they got one thing there who's at war. Right. One, shut down. But here's the thing, shut down drone warfare. They're literally committing a genocide. They're literally committing a genocide. Nothing specific. No, let's stop this war. Let's do something about the genocide. It's shut down drone warfare. That's the best you can do right now.
Oh, yeah. What about the drone attacks on actual civilians and babies and doctors and journalists? What about that targeting of innocent people? Is that included in the drone warfare? Is that included in the technology being used? How about the blowing up of people? How about self-destructing cell phones in people's pockets and blowing off their genitals? Is that something that's included in the? We're fighting the technology of this drone warfare. I mean, I don't. Nothing specific, just like you said, darling. Nothing specific. Oh, don't forget, we have to protect NATO. That's also important at these rallies, at these movements. We have to protect NATO in the process.
Well, look, under their stuff that says major issues, if you go down to war and peace, right? War and peace, endless war, international peace, United Nations, nothing specific, not a thing. Nothing specific about it. It's all a bunch of crap. So somebody put together 4 websites, stuck them together. It's obvious. They got 4. The same person created them. I guarantee that if you start checking who is, which I would do, but I'm not going to do it right now since we're running out of time. But it's just so obvious that the whole thing is a fraud.
Yeah.
But at any rate, thanks a lot, man, for doing your good work. Or tell everybody where they can find you online.
Yeah, you can find us at The Homeless Left, Matt Weinglass on Twitter. The Homeless Left is on Rumble. We have another account we had to start on YouTube because they terminated, Google and YouTube terminated our previous channel, which was The Homeless Left. So we are now THL Presents on YouTube, but the main channel is The Homeless Left on Rumble. We actually just had our 100th episode on Rumble. So we celebrated that. It was awesome. And so we're going to kick back out on next week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. You guys can catch us every Tuesdays and Thursdays live at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. So yeah, we just always do great discussions and try to stay up on stuff. And like we said earlier, a non-tribal approach to news.
You're here. All right, dude. Well, thank you very much. Certainly appreciate it. And we'll talk again soon. Pretty enlightening looking at the people behind these, the people behind this website, isn't it? It's insane.
Absolutely,
it's insane.
Colin.
All right, dude. Talk to you soon. Everybody, here's what's important, that you follow Matt's group, The Homeless Left, particularly on Rumble, but also THL Presents on YouTube. You share it on all your social media platforms. And also, if you can afford to, that you can support this particular channel. Even if you can't, doesn't matter. You know, we got Patreon, buy me a coffee, all that kind of stuff. But even if you can't, you can follow my Substack. You can become a member there. You can become a member here, and make sure that you share this on all your social media platforms. We're out.